damn thing down the stairs seemed like the thing to do. Then I ripped the bloody door right off the loo. Because when your day starts just like this, and opened up is when I hear Nikki says, and opened up is don't care if you're not impressed, and opened up is did I mention I was a house guest, and opened up is heading out this evening to meet up with my boys for a couple beers. We'll make a little noise. Checked out the telly to find out what's the score, but the Patriots, they ain't no good no more. I threw that telly on the floor, then caught shit from the man. So I made a beeline straight for the can. Because when your evening starts like this, and opened up is when Tom Brady leaves the Patriots, and opened up is hey, I almost never miss, and opened up is everybody take a look at this, and opened up is don't care about your rules, don't live my life to please you fools. If you don't like it, turn the other way. That's what I say. Like there's no child writing songs with kiss, and open doors. Like 90s ballads from Aerosmith, and open doors. When the Jays can't get no hits, and open doors. When your socks they smell like this, and open doors. When you just don't give a shit, and open doors. I think you get the gist, and open doors.
Good evening, folks. And after drinking this large regular, I might be the one taking an open door piss. Anyway, can we get some feedback on the audio? Some audio feedback, please. Oh, here's Harrison. How about I just ask him how the audio is? Hey, Harrison, how are you?
Well, thanks.
I sound okay? You sound fine?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me tonight. Tonight we are talking about Mystique, which is a band that originated in the early to 83 to 89-ish, and a band from Hamilton, Ontario, that put out minimal releases, an EP, a single, and a demo, and they're going for $200, $250 on the secondhand market. So, yeah, we've both been doing our research this week. What do you think about Mystique?
Metal, very metal, definitely
Very metal.
A bit more metal than the hair metal image and the glam image would make you believe at first.
Yeah, no doubt. Very much traditional metal. I heard a lot of Maiden and Deep Purple when I was listening. But yeah, their singles go for like $250 whenever they show up in the secondhand market, which is rare. We're going to be learning a lot about them tonight from Marco Doria, who's directed the film Standing on the Firing Line, the story of Mystique. And I see you have a Lego castle behind you.
Yeah, I'd got some new storage solutions. I'm in the process of moving things around. Yeah.
Nice.
The CDs have been moved to a new shelf with more room for them. And so now I can justify buying more because I have room to put them.
That Gothic castle kind of fits with the Mystique sound.
Except that there's vulture from Homecoming sitting on top of it, but
that's okay. You could pretend he's a gargoyle. I'm sure Mystique would put a gargoyle somewhere in their artwork given the opportunity. At least like the artwork, like if you've seen like the artwork for stuff like the Black Rider EP, it doesn't match their clothes at all. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be an interesting chat tonight.
But we'll see more of that castle in an upcoming chapter of T-Bone Man.
Good to know. Well, folks, welcome to the show. This is the Brain Train. This is the Friday, July 15th already. Where is the summer going? Episode. And we are waiting on Marco Doria to arrive, at which time we will commence the proceedings. We're going to be talking about the Mystique film, Standing on the Firing Line. You can buy your tickets there. It is showing in Hamilton, Ontario. So unfortunately, Harrison won't be seeing the film at the premiere anyway. But we'll be asking Marco all the questions about distribution and how we will be able to see this film if we aren't able to be there in person. Like, I can't even say for sure that I'll be there in person because A, I hate driving, and B, I really hate driving in Hamilton. Hamilton is all one-way streets, and some people love it, and some people hate it.
One of the two offices I work at, it's on a one-way street, and I remember I needed to go somewhere, and I turned one street too early, so I did 10 minutes trying to get back around to where I was, but then I got stuck in a right lane must turn right only. So I had to spend another 10 minutes getting right back around to where I was. It's awful.
That sounds like Hamilton, except it's all one-way streets. Yeah, and I used to work in Hamilton, so I remember very well. I've never had more car trouble than when I was working in Hamilton. Anyway, I see that Marco is about ready to join us. So let's just quickly, before we start the show officially, let's talk about some of the stuff we've got going down tonight. Obviously, discussing the film, but he also has two giveaways, and we will be doing a on the spot question for the viewers, and he will be giving away an autograph poster. That's the big prize, and I believe there's an 8x10. So these are some very cool items that we will be giving away tonight. We also have clips from the film, exclusive clips from the film to show tonight, with including some exclusive song snippets. So that'll be kind of cool. Yeah, I'm really excited. Without further ado, why don't we get the show on the road for the Friday, July 15th, La Brain Train. Let's get it going.
Ticket to anywhere and a glazed donut to go. The Brain Train. The Brain Train. All aboard.
All right, let's bring on Marco.
The Brain Train is proud to present Marco Doria.
Hello, Marco.
Hey, excited to be here.
Hello.
It's the first time I haven't seen you with a big pair of headphones.
How you folks doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I'm still reeling at the revelation that Marco has ears.
Oh yeah. Get a good look at them. You can screenshot this.
It's the first time.
Exclusive.
Exclusive. Well, speaking of exclusives, tonight we're going to be talking about Marco's new film, Mystique, Standing on the Firing Line, which I know you've been working on a long time, and we've got exclusive clips to show and all the exclusive inside info from you, obviously. Are you ready to rock? Are you ready to start?
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Well, why don't we start at the beginning?
Awesome.
I know you've been working on this film a long time. When exactly did you begin the process of putting together a documentary film about this band from Hamilton called Mystique?
Yeah, here's my shirt, by the way.
Oh, beauty.
Yeah, there's the logo. This is not vintage. I have vintage shirts, but I had this made for me.
Nice.
I do have vintage T-shirts. Well, in a long roundabout way, like I kind of started working. I've been fascinated with the band since I was a kid. So, I mean, I started digging up information as soon as I found out about the band. My uncle's the vocalist.
Yeah.
So naturally, I was just attracted to this thing. I didn't understand what it was. And I just started using the internet and started using whatever resources I had, asking my uncle about it. So ever since I was a kid, I started kind of trying to find all the information I could get about this mystical band that there was not a lot of information about. In terms of the actual movie itself, when it was first discussed and when we actually started logistically getting things done, I would say was 2017. So in 2017 was when I talked to a friend of mine who is in film and television, and we had kind of talked logistically about certain things. And that's when I started making moves to reaching out to my uncle, John, who was also the co-founder of Mystique, and other folks that I knew that were involved with the band to start setting up interview. Martin Popoff, I reached out to in 2017 to see if he was interested in providing an interview, because he had written a couple of books about record collecting and things like this. And he had a review guide. And so Mystique is in a couple of Martin's books that he wrote about, and he's Toronto based. And so am I. So it made sense to reach out to him. So 2017, I'd say, was when we started working on it. And we had a rough cut finished right before the lockdowns started happening. So this was meant, if you look at the original poster, it says 2020. That's when it was meant to be released. So it's been a long time for sure. And mostly because of that, we did have a working copy around that time. Like you could sit down and watch it start to finish, but we've kind of been waiting for the right time, and it kind of feels right now. So
have you been tweaking that working copy in the couple of years since lockdown began?
Yeah, this is a conversation I've had often. Of course, I speak to my uncle a lot. I speak to John, who's in the band, a lot, and some of the other guys I speak to here and there. This was a conversation that I've had with him several times, that there were things that ended up in the documentary that would not have been in it if we had released it in 2020. In fact, there was 2 interviews we ended up getting. Well, one of them was supposed to happen, but then it was delayed because of the lockdowns. But there was another interview I ended up getting, a gentleman who produced the 45 that they had put out in '88. He had engineered it, and he was working on he engineered some soundboard recording. He worked with the band in that period, 88, 89. He wasn't on the radar for an interview until during that initial lockdown period. And I actually he's the only Zoom interview in the film. Everybody else is in person. So there was a few things that, because we waited, it actually helped the documentary for sure.
Ah, so great.
It worked out. Yeah.
Harrison, I'll throw it to you.
All right. So what sort of challenges did you find in the filmmaking process? And were there any surprises that you found that you hadn't expected when you first set about making this documentary?
It's interesting because I think the challenges didn't seem difficult to overcome because of the passion I had for the project. So things that like logistically speaking, driving a certain amount of a distance to get an interview with somebody I wanted to interview, like that to me wasn't a challenge because I was excited about the interview. So that process, it wasn't difficult. Even the editing process, like I ended up with like 20 plus hours of footage, hundreds of images, all kinds of different things. And I had to edit that down to, a theatrical runtime. So I had lots of footage and lots of things that you would think would be tedious to continue to go through these things and edit it together. These are things that I learned because, I guess you could call me a filmmaker now, but I had no filmmaking experience prior to this. So like even the tediousness of editing 20 plus hours of footage and hundreds of documents, going and scanning hundreds of documents and doing things like that, like you could call that tedious or whatever, but it wasn't much of a challenge because of the passion, like, and going through it was exciting. I guess getting some people on board with interviews might have been a challenge. Trying to dig things up might have been a challenge, especially on, a local independent band that existed 30 plus years ago, trying to find information now and trying to find images and things like this now, like that's challenging for sure. But that's also very rewarding when you uncover something that even me as a lifelong Mystique fan and having access to my uncle and all the things that he owned over the years he kept, discovering new things was very exciting. That's some stuff he had not even seen.
I've seen that there are lyric sheets in some of the clips from the documentaries and stuff like that. I imagine they fit that category of good items, basically, that were rewarding to find.
Yeah, almost all the lyric sheets my uncle owned in books. He has all the lyrics from like all the bands that he was in, which is amazing. I was at his house one day, talk about like work. Like I was there for 8 hours, like an 8-hour shift, just scanning documents out of like the things that he owned from previous bands, mostly, like Mystique, scanning all these images, documents, contracts, like all kinds of things that a lot of it's not even in the documentary because there's so much stuff, letters that he wrote to his family when he was recording abroad internationally, things like this. Like that's not necessarily in the documentary, but I scanned almost everything. So yeah, the lyric sheets was definitely exciting to find for sure. But there was also things that people gave me that weren't from my uncle that he had never seen before. That stuff was really exciting. Actually, one thing that was really exciting my uncle had, I don't know if I'm hijacking the interview right now.
Nope.
My uncle had a Kodak like Super 8 undeveloped film cartridge, right? So I took this thing, it was sitting in a basement for like 30 plus years. This is from like 1982, from a band that he was in just before Mystique, that Ray and John were both in this band, Orion, and they left Orion to form Mystique. So my Uncle Ray had what he believed. I actually have the Super 8 thing here.
Wow.
So the cartridge was in here since like 1982-ish, 1983 maybe, and this sat in the basement for years and years and years, undeveloped. So my uncle believed that there was performance footage on this cartridge, but he wasn't sure because it had been so long, but he was pretty sure that's what it was. I shopped it around to different photo studios. Nobody could develop it for me because they had told me that Kodak had discontinued the chemicals that they used to develop this style of Kodak film.
Really?
It was discontinued in like 2010. Wow. So like all these photo places I went to was like, there's no way we can develop this, right? Wow. So I was kind of bummed out. Somebody turned me on to this company called Film Rescue International, and they're in the business of developing discontinued film and footage and photographs and all kinds of things. They're one of the few places in the world that can do it, and they actually did it, and it wasn't cheap, and it took like 6 months to get it back because they have got a long queue list. So I had to mail it to them. I had to wait 6 months, and there was the chance that they might not be able to save the film because as soon as they, it's so old and whatever that they might have tried to develop it and it might not have come out anything. But it actually was originally on color, and I had to make the choice. They said, if you do it in color, there's a higher chance that we could not rescue this footage. So they suggested doing it in black and white. So we actually chose black and white, which is the safe way. It actually looks really cool. It actually ended up being performance footage, and they sent it back. It's about 3.5 minutes long. It's a film reel. The film reel's in here now. It's not a cartridge anymore. And this is actually performance footage, silent, from Orion from 1982. And it actually looks really good. And you'll see a quick clip of it in the trailer that's on the Eventbrite page or on YouTube.
Very cool.
So that was absolutely incredible. That came from my Uncle Ray, but it just sat there and it was never developed for so long. That was exciting.
Wow.
So just to make a point here, Marco's uncle is named Ray Doria, and that is information that you may need later on in the show.
Right.
That's cool. Like I think everybody has encountered obscure formats and things like that and had to consider getting them converted, but I didn't know that was becoming impossible for some of these Super 8 films. We have a ton, but I guess this is a sort of recent development, 2010-ish. These things were discontinued, the chemicals.
Yeah, it's not impossible, but it is. It's not cheap, and it could take a long time. And there's a chance that you might not get anything out of it.
And so did you send it overseas? Is that the case?
No, actually, they had They have a location in. I could be wrong, but I think they have a location in Europe, one in California, and one in I think BC was where I said.
Okay.
So they had 3 locations around the world. There's other places that can do it. I could be wrong about that, by the way, but I think I sent it in Canada. But the wait was more because they had a huge wait list. There's a couple of other places that I think can do it, but there's very few places in the world that can develop undeveloped Super 8 Kodak film. I think some other film is easier to develop or not as difficult or whatever, but for some reason this one is, I guess, more challenging to develop. That
patented 80s Kodachrome formula, I guess, that is now obsolete. Yeah, he's right there. So I want to play a clip right now. This is the first of the clips that you showed me, and it's just about the band practice. So this will just give people a little bit of insight into who Mystique were. So here's the first clip from the film, Standing on the Firing Line.
They were probably practicing 3 times a week, on a pretty regular basis.
Especially during the Mystique years, they really challenged me to get better. But for those years, I would say about 2 to 3 hours a day, I would be practicing.
If it was late at night and the studio's closed and they were practicing, a lot of times I'd be up there running the board, and then once you got the board set up, you just let them play. So they were one of the few bands that I would stand and watch play because they were good, and that's how you can tell when you start seeing people like that. So these guys were practicing even if they had no gigs, they were and that's kind of like the school I came from. We practiced and practiced and practiced. It wasn't a chore. And those guys were one of the few bands that were willing to do that, or in some.
So they were serious.
Yeah. And that gentleman there speaking, his name was Lee. He owned a place in Hamilton called Saturn Productions. And a lot of bands came through there, a lot of famous bands. I don't know them all off the top of my head, but several bands that you might have heard of went through there. It was a music store and a rehearsal studio, but he also had recording equipment, and bands would record demos there. Bands would record live off the floor, just rehearsal stuff. He would sell local bands albums, local bands posters and whatever, and he would help promote local band gigs and stuff like this. So he's really important to the Hamilton music history, and he's in the film. And he was a wealth of knowledge, and he's got a lot of stuff in his basement that I've been bugging him to let me come over and scan and document and archive this stuff, because he's got posters and flyers of all kinds of indie bands that I've never even heard of from the 80s who went through that era at that time. So he had a wealth of knowledge, and he played in bands himself in the 70s. He was a singer as well, a vocalist in the late 60s up until the late 70s is when he was active.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. 7:15, I want to do the first giveaway. I have a special guest actually here who is going to be doing the giveaway question for the first prize, which is we're going to do I think it's an 8x10.
Yeah, I've got An 8x10 here. So this is John and Ray when they recorded in France. It's
Signed.
autographed. Those are real autographs, and they were the founders of Mystique.
There you go. Okay, so if you want this 8x10, then answer this question from the Meat Man.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hello.
And I will just state, first correct answer gets the prize.
Okay, we'll do this right off the bat. The question is, in what city was Mystique formed?
Jeez.
Anyone? Were you watching 7 minutes ago and 11 minutes ago and 12 minutes ago when it was mentioned several times?
And about 30 seconds ago.
About 30 seconds ago. So if you were paying attention to that question, drop a comment and you will win that 8x10 that Marco just showed off. Signed in France.
Yes.
That was the Eiffel Tower.
So, first of all, hello, LeBrain, and hello, the Australian contrarian, and of course, the contrarian, Marco. I just saw that clip for the first time, and I got to say, it looks great. I have a guilty pleasure of loving music documentaries in exactly that kind of format. Like, I just love everything about that stuff. So that it looks fantastic. I'm quite curious to see that.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
And just quickly as well, I wanted to say I recently watched the What If episode that you and Martin did about Kiss Alive 3, and I fucking loved it. I like so much. I watched it and then rewatched it like immediately. Because it's right up my alley, and like you, the album Unmasked is a guilty pleasure of mine too. So I really liked a lot of comment about it. And I remember thinking like, wow, maybe they could have played a Torpedo Girl, which is my favorite song on Unmasked. But I'm like, you might need Anton Fig actually being the drummer of Kiss. They pull that off. So.
Yeah, we had a lot of comments where they're like, oh, you left this one off, you left that one off. And we were like, we missed, there's so many songs that we missed that we could have put on there for sure.
I think you're right that Shandy should have been on there just because like of all those, probably the biggest song possible of those three albums, really, like chart wise or whatever. So
if it was real, it would have been for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it's great stuff. Like, I kind of hope you do more of that What If thing, like Marvel did. That
Yeah.
What if Ray and John never left Orion and never formed Mystique?
Yeah, exactly. There were plans to record.
We'd be doing the Orion movie right now.
There's original Orion tunes. They had plans to record an album, like all kinds of stuff. They toured around.
I find that neat that they were in a band called Orion like many years before that became a known song title by Metallica. I mean, I'm sure there is some sort of myth to whatever that is, if that's some sort of
it's a constellation,
a Greek god or what? The constellation. Okay,
constellation.
Yeah, it's going to be something.
Yeah, you can go on YouTube. I uploaded to the Mystique Film page. There's actually a soundboard recording of an original Orion song with photographs of Orion performing live. So if you're interested in that at all. And I see a comment too. Sounds like another documentary in the making. I think that's when I was talking about Lee. And that's what's exciting about this too, is it's like, I hope it's successful because there's other bands that deserve recognition and have interesting stories and that like a lot of people don't know about. And I'm hoping that if this is successful, that maybe this will open the door to other folks wanting to pursue, whether it's bands or even just a documentary about the Hamilton music scene in general or other local areas and other local bands and stuff like this. So there's a lot of doors that can open with a successful project like this.
The Hamilton music scene. The Hamilton music scene. And
Wow.
can you just do the question one more time for the first in the 8x10 giveaway?
The question is, where was the band Mystique formed?
That's a great question.
And
So
I
if
will tell you this because I even looked this up. This is fact about this city. Famous people from this city: Dave Thomas, Eugene Levy, Martin Short, Karen Kane, Rick Campanelli, Graham Greene, Brian Lanahan, Ivan Reitman, Steve Smith, also known as Red Green, Brian Williams, Now, for us, as in for music, hey,
We
look
have
at
a
that.
Hamilton.
We have a
Rock and
winner.
roll. Rock
We
and
have
roll.
a winner. There you go, Mom.
I hope you put that as a framed photo in your living room.
I guess I will.
Yeah, there you go. And I will just
Birthday
say,
is next week.
now, as in for Hamilton, now I can say that. Now, as in for Hamilton bands, there really hasn't been what you would call a metal band like known from Hamilton. They're fringe stuff. Like there's been stuff like a Teenage Head. There's the Arkells, Crowbar, Forgotten Rebels, Junk House, the Killjoys, Monster Shit. I mean, Nickelback Light. I mean, Monster Truck, Svengali, Varga, and Whitehorse. But I couldn't even see really a metalish band that was from Hamilton. So it's kind of neat that way.
Yeah, progressive metal band.
We'll let Frankie Toms have it. Frankie Toms is the winner of the 8x10. because it wouldn't be fair. So Frankie Toms, send me your
That's
info.
funny.
I will forward it to Marco.
I'm going to get out of here, but I just wanted to say a quick thing to the Australian contrarian. The 21st version of Sausage Fest showed up, and a shout out to Frank Toms, who I got to ride up with and back, and it was a great time. But I wanted to tell you that the #1 song this year was the Electric Light Orchestra and Mr. Blue Sky. Mr. Blue Sky. So
Great song.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, Marco, hey, congrats, man. You used the phrase a passion project earlier, and I know exactly what you mean. Like, that's not work. That's just fun.
Yeah.
Even the annoyances you learn by as you're going through, and I think it's awesome that you've done this. So best of luck. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that a lot.
Cheers, mate.
Absolutely. You guys take care.
Yep.
And
Ciao,
keep
diddly how.
Keep growing the director. See you guys.
See ya.
See ya.
Well, Meat actually led into something that I was going to ask you, which is why Mystique? Why not the band that I knew better of Ray's, Slam Glory? Why not Orion?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, Mystique was the first one that I discovered as a kid. And the music grabbed me right away in such an interesting way that I think it just something about it just grabbed me right away. And I've told the story before. I saw Tim in the comments. I think I told the same story on his show, because he interviewed me as well. And that interview is going to come up. He's actually posting that. It was pre-recorded.
Tim, post the date that you'll be doing that. Post the date.
I saw the first time I saw the vinyl was at my grandmother's house, just like in a box of vinyls. And first of all, at that time, like as a kid, like I didn't even know what vinyls were, right? And I remember like pulling out this Mystique vinyl and seeing my uncle on the back of it, and just being fascinated, like, what is this? Like, I don't even understand what this is, and like, what's Mystique and why is like he there and like all this stuff. And I remember pulling out Scorpions Worldwide Live, the one that opens up and you see the horizon of heads, or the view of heads that goes into the horizon. And I remember thinking like, oh, like, okay, this is what Mystique is. Like, there's Scorpions and there's Mystique. And so to me, they were almost, I couldn't differentiate between the two. And I remember at some point, not then, but later, getting a hold of one of my uncle's cassette tapes, and it just said like Mystique on it or something like this. So I took it home and threw it in. And at this point, I was a fan of Kiss. I was a fan of Kiss when I was really young. So I was into, I guess, hard rock or like heavier rock type of music at this point already. And I was maybe just when I was turning 10, 11, something like this. And I remember listening to the music, and the first time I heard the song Black Rider, it just grabbed me. And I was just absolutely fascinated with this. Of course, I'm a fan of my uncle's other bands. And of course, I would love to archive all the music of all these like local bands and indie bands and stuff like this. But Mystique has a very interesting history. They have a lot of releases. They're an international recording band. Their releases are very sought after by collectors today.
Yeah.
So that's like I've seen Some sales as high as like $800 Canadian on eBay for the Black Rider EP. The 45 is sold for a couple of $100. I know privately it's sold for I think $400 at least, Canadian prices here. So like there's a lot of interesting things about the band in and around the band, and to this day it's sought after, and it makes sense. To me, it makes sense. It was always the number one band in my heart, and I always wanted to uncover information about this band. I was always fascinated by it.
Well, you sent me a video clip addressing the Black Rider EP and talks about some of the rarity factor. So why don't we play this clip here and we'll illustrate what Marco was talking about.
Cool.
This is from the Mystique film, Standing on the Firing Line. This is a clip about the Black Rider EP.
Recent sales of upwards to $800. I mean, they're not making any more of these, so it's like it was an indie. It came out at the time. I'm not sure how many copies were made. I've heard as low as 500 copies, maybe 1,000, maybe a little bit more. But there were not 10,000 of these Mystique 5-track Black Rider EPs. Some get ruined, some get lost, some get destroyed, some get thrown away. Eventually they find their home where they go into record collection and that guy doesn't want to sell it anymore. But something like that retains its value, so many years later, because it is well done. It is fantasy based. It's a little bit proggy. It has all of these sort of elements to it that are still the collectible things over time.
850 odd bucks.
Yeah, and that graph that I show in the film there, I didn't create that graph. That was a graph I found online, just of history of sales of this album, I think from eBay. So
Wow.
That's not even, private sales and things like this. And that doesn't even account for those.
That's incredible.
That was 2016, I think, too.
I've resigned myself to the fact that I will likely never own any Mystique, at least original Mystique. But I think Harrison had some questions lined up about that kind of stuff.
Yes, indeed. The one anomaly in the Mystique discography is this little item on Discogs called Black Rider 30-year Anniversary from 2016 or 2015-ish. So would you like to explain how that came to be?
Yeah,
and what it is?
So I actually have it here. You'll see some signatures. Of course, I got the band to sign it, like all different people. But this was actually, it was released on CD. So this is the CD. It came out on Eat Metal Records, and there's a booklet. They added some tracks from some of the other recordings, so they expanded it to 10 tracks. There's a booklet with some images on the inside. I have a vinyl of it right here, and the vinyl version of it, I have it framed here. But this comes with all the lyrics and stuff like this. So this was the 30th anniversary reissue of the Black Rider EP, and this was made in collaboration between John and Ray. They had a record company from Greece reach out to them and asked if they could reissue it on vinyl, and they made some kind of deal. And it's actually sold out on their website. But if you wanted to own this CD, it's not as hard to track down as the original vinyl. If you wanted to get it on vinyl or CD, you'll see these on eBay for an affordable price. If you wanted to own something physical, that's an official release by Mystique.
Okay, so there is hope. But yet there was this, and it's in the film, this 1989 album that the band recorded. And it sounds like, from what little we know of this album, it would have been a full length, and it was fully recorded. And I think it was just waiting to be have a final mix or something like that. And then it never came out. So what is the story with this unreleased album? We have a clip about it as well, but I thought I would ask you, I know you say there's some tracks that have survived, but some of them are basically lost forever.
Yeah, so the band, after the 45, so the 45 was more, I guess you could say, less progressive metal and more like a commercial type of tune. It's called Rock and Roll Party Tonight, and they were looking for something they could maybe put on the radio, maybe something that could be a hit. They went more in that direction, and they were recording an album in late 88 and early 89 that was more in that commercially type of direction of that type of metal, and it never got finished. The band ended up separating because of creative differences and things like this. It goes into it in the film, But there were tracks done, I think, for about 5 or 6 songs. They had about 10 or 11 written, and I have all the lyric sheets and all this stuff, and I have like contracts, and you can see all kinds of stuff, just naming the songs and this and that. But yeah, they didn't get to finish the album, and those songs were lost to me and to my uncle. I had never heard them up until I knew some of them existed. But up until I started working on this documentary, that was one of the things that I was able to uncover that was basically lost.
Something that your uncle had no idea survived.
As far as I knew, he was not in possession of these songs.
Wow.
Up until I was able to track them down.
Well, let's run that little clip from the film
years ago.
And I think there's even a little tiny snippet of that unreleased music too in this clip that we're about to see. But
just briefly, yeah.
Just briefly, but so fans, get your tape recorders ready. This is a little clip about the unreleased album from Standing on the Firing Line.
There was an album, but I don't know if it exists. They went because that was the point. Then I think Ray quit. Like I don't know what happened there, but
I heard something was in the works. And apparently there's some material out there. For whatever reason, it didn't come out. So I'd be interested in hearing it in its entirety. I'd probably buy it.
Yeah, and then they wanted to continue to finish out an album, and for some reason, I can't really say it fell apart, but something went down, and I don't think it ever got mixed. It just was all sitting on 2-inch somewhere.
Yes. Yeah, we managed to salvage the original the original 2-inch tapes I mentioned. So Carl had a contact in Mississauga. We took the 2-track tapes to him, and he did a very quick mix down.
Throw them on the machine, and we tried to get a reasonable mix of whatever was on those tapes, and that's what we ended up with. Were those 5 or 6 songs that I sent you. That's all that's left of it, right?
Man, I love that little clip.
Yeah, that was exciting. That was a very exciting part. Same with the footage, like uncovering that footage, uncovering these songs. Those pieces like made everything worth it. Whether the film's a success or not, and it will be a success. Yeah. And I believe in it, but that was very exciting. That made everything worth it for sure. Uncovering those songs and the original tape. And I think I mentioned this to you in the chat. The recording tape was so expensive back then that they actually sold it, and the master tapes were sold to another band, and it was re-recorded over.
That's a shame.
That was like the Iron Maiden Soundhouse tapes situation. They wanted the studio to hold the master tape because they couldn't afford it, but they had to go over it, and so they had to just go with the rougher mixes of the Soundhouse tapes. Mm-hmm. But speaking of Iron Maiden, I noticed from that clip that it had, and the other clips that we've seen, that there's a bit of a stylistic similarity between their early years documentary and probably some other music documentaries I haven't seen. So what would you say some of your influences were in filmmaking?
It's interesting because I've been a fan of music a long time, but I've also been a really big fan of film. I went to school for media arts at one point. It was a 1-year program, and I finished that. And that's how I met some people that were in film and television, because they went on to do film and television. I went on to do something else. But I've always been very interested in film. I had no experience doing this, no budget doing this. This is literally just made it off the floor with whatever resources and means that I had. The biggest influence on me was probably just people like my uncle, like my dad in another way, because he followed a different path with something else, but their drive to do something that they believed in was a huge influence on me. So that was probably the biggest influence in terms of like what films influenced me. Like I know there's another film called Searching for Sugar Man, which I saw subsequently to working on this documentary, which follows a similar type of narrative where this individual put out an album and just kind of disappeared. And it was, didn't really do anything back then, but then years later, it was discovered that this album was very sought after, or was popular in South America, and the individual kind of had a cult following, or he had a big following in South America. So South Africa, sorry. Yeah. That was a documentary that I saw subsequent to it. I don't know. I wasn't trying to mimic
I don't mean to imply that you're being derivative of anyone. I just wanted to comment on the professionalism and the look of the film.
Yeah, what's interesting is I tried to make what I thought a documentary looked like in my head, more than trying to and I wasn't accusing you of saying anything like that, but it was more just in my head, it made sense. In my head, I was like, this is what I need to do. And I just took it one step at a time. And I knew what story I wanted to tell and all the questions I had written out when I interviewed each person. I knew what I was looking for. And I knew how to put it together to tell the story. Because I knew the basic bones story, but there was a lot that I learned about the story that I didn't know while I was interviewing everybody.
Which leads into this viewer question. Was there a certain fact or something that you learned about Mystique that kind of shocked even you?
I think is there something that I didn't know about Mystique? Well, I didn't really know that they were working on another album until I started working on the documentary. So that's something I didn't know. That I found out about. What I'll answer this a different way. What's interesting is when I interviewed Martin, I thought I knew everything about Mystique, right? I thought I'm probably the biggest Mystique expert in the world. And when I interviewed him for there's like an hour and 40 minutes of raw footage of me interviewing Martin, a little bit about him and mostly about Mystique and bands like Mystique. And I walked out of there feeling like I got an education because he was able to talk about Mystique specifically. He was able to talk about scenarios that were similar to bands that were like Mystique. He was able to explain why something might be valuable or collectible. He gave me a lot of insight and information in general that made me appreciate like record collecting and gave me knowledge of things that I didn't even think about. For example, Meat earlier was mentioning like you don't see a lot of heavy metal bands from Hamilton. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that Martin said kind of makes it a little bit more valuable because it's a little exotic to collectors, because it's not like here's another metal band from California or something like this. It's like, where's this band coming from? Like just the city of Hamilton from Canada. It makes it a little more exotic to collectors from around the world. So I learned a lot talking to Martin, for sure. I walked out of there thinking, wow.
That's cool. One thing I want to address, the thing that shocked me, after I heard the music, I had a certain image in my mind, but then I saw the pictures, and the image that I saw in my mind from the music did not match the photographs of the band. And this is something that is talked about in the last clip that we're going to show here, which has a lot of Martin in it as well. And I really love the way Martin describes the image, but I want to run this clip. This is our last one and probably my favorite of them, but let's just say that Mystique's image was a little incongruous with their sound, at least on the Black Rider EP. The 89 album, maybe not so much, but have a look at this clip from Standing on the Firing Line.
So I picked up the poster, and as I was leaving, I saw a couple of young girls coming in, and they were picking up the poster and picking up the tape. So yeah, people were definitely buying their merchandise back in those days.
They look perfect, and the outfits are just... I mean, this looks like basically the David Lee Roth band in 1986 or 1988, you know, the explosion in the costume factory look, right?
They had the look. They knew how to market themselves, right? But at the same time, once those teenage girls that were listening to that, they weren't turned off by the fact that they were playing like heavy progressive music.
Absolutely 100% as pure a hair metal look as you could possibly get. There's not a stitch of jeans here. There's not a stitch of anything that is from the 70s. It's a perfect look. I would say this is so extreme that the only two bands I would compare it to are the David Lee Roth Band, 1986, with Steve Vai in it and Greg Bissonette and Billy Sheehan and David Lee Roth. The other band that went this far would be Kiss at the time. So I would say Mystique, Kiss, and the David Lee Roth Band are all tied for first place as the most hair metal bands I've ever seen.
Explosion in the costume factory.
You can hear me laugh at the end of that clip. I couldn't contain myself. That's the only time I think you hear my voice in this documentary. It's at the end there.
That's such a great clip.
That was an amazing line. I wasn't expecting him to say anything like that.
He was so on point there, though. Like, there are very few bands that had an image that extreme. David Lee Roth did, Kiss did, arguably Bon Jovi, but you know, it was unique. And I'm kind of curious, Marco, for you, seeing your uncle dressed like that as a kid, what was going through your head when you saw those pictures of your uncle?
Oh, I thought it was amazing. I was a fan of Kiss growing up. So 80s, and I'm a big fan of 80s Kiss. Yeah, Vinnie Vincent Invasion. But I'm a big fan of 80s Kiss. Like, I thought it was incredible. Yeah, it's interesting because the sound of their music, if you listen to the first two releases, it's like progressive metal, and it's like fantasy, and like what Martin had said, right? Like fantasy type of metal. And around that time, they were kind of getting pushed by folks in the industry to say, like, you know, maybe you can put out a poster, and maybe you can, like, you know, look a certain part, and maybe that'll get you some attention and stuff like this. So it is really interesting what Lee says. I don't know if he says it if he mentioned it in that clip, or if he says it in another time, but he said they were playing like this really heavy, like European progressive metal style of metal, and yet they looked like a Poison or something like this, which later on is they actually kind of started going in that direction musically as well with the 45. But up to that point, when they did that poster, they were like, I Am the King, Black Rider, Wake Up Screaming. They were doing a pretty heavy type of Iron Maiden-esque type of metal. So it is interesting for sure, but they did go that way musically eventually.
I noticed that despite the fact that the two posters had almost identical outfits on them, that the logos, or like the band name, was actually drastically different in the style between those two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that logo, the logo that looks like this was the logo they had at the time, and that's what's on the I Am the King cassette. So this is also really rare. This was recorded in France.
Look at that.
That's the I Am the King cassette. There's only one of this that exists in my family right now. I don't even think my Uncle Ray has one of these, or he has it buried somewhere.
Wow.
That's the cassette that was recorded in France. That's the logo that you see on the one poster. The other logo was actually designed by the guitarist Eric. Eric is on here. He's from France. Eric Nicola.
Okay.
And he designed that logo, I think, years later. I think he kind of drafted that logo later on. That was an image that I got from him. But I use that image because it's a really clear alternate version of that other poster. So they're two different images of the bands, but that one has a different logo. You're right. So Eric did that. And Eric was a big fan of another thing that's funny. In the interview with Martin, when he looks at this poster, he's like, yeah, they kind of have a striper thing kind of going on.
Yeah.
Eric here on this side, he was a huge striper fan. So it was interesting that he picked up on that almost without knowing it. And I mentioned that to him after the interview. I said, it's funny that you mentioned that because Eric was a huge striper fan.
That is funny. And speaking of Eric, this Eric has a very good question because I don't know the answer. I think it's probably from a lyric, but I'm going to guess that.
I think it's a song title.
Is it a song title?
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, no. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I didn't mean to answer your question for you. Sorry. I'll let you.
No, that's okay. So what's interesting is that actually was Martin's idea when I interviewed him. My original title was No Return, the story of Mystique, because No Return is maybe my favorite Mystique song. And it's off the first EP, and it made sense contextually. Standing on the Firing Line was a suggestion by Martin Popoff because he asked me, like, what are you going to call this thing? I said, oh, are you thinking about calling it No Return? And he said, No Return. He's like, it's kind of, maybe that's been done before. Maybe it's just two words, like it's No Return. He was thinking about it, and he had the CD, and Standing on the Firing Line is a song. It's the last song on the CD. It's from the I'm the King cassette. And it's a very kind of like melancholy, I guess, Black Sabbath-esque ballad. It's not necessarily a power ballad. There's no drums on it. And, Martin kind of talks about that a little bit in the film as well. And he just said that makes a more interesting title than No Return. And I thought about it and I said, yeah, that sounds like an awesome title for the film. And it makes sense too, because they were always working really hard, and you know what I mean? Like they were trying to get at it, and they were victim to the music industry, and they were a band that had the talent to go further, but certain things happened that didn't allow them to go as far as their talent would have suggested they could have made it. So they were always standing on the firing line. They were always, in the crosshairs and working hard on, you know, putting out something in '85 that's like Iron Maiden-esque, and then the music industry is changing and they're keeping up with it, and then it changes again, and then they're trying to keep up with it. So it's an interesting title in a lot of ways contextually.
Yeah. Well, I have another surprise for you. Our second surprise guest of tonight, and I don't know if you can guess who it is, but I'm really good at segues, so maybe you can guess who our special surprise guest is.
I have no idea. I saw Tim in the comments, and I suspect maybe it's Tim.
Maybe the other world's foremost expert on Mystique, Mr. Martin Popoff. Hi, Martin.
How you doing, guys?
Great. How are you?
Cool. Thanks for having me. This is awesome. Yeah, I got to listen to a little bit of that. That was a really cool background on the band. It was cool. So I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's not Jimmy Page. It's just me.
Well, thanks for coming on. I know that you have the great honor of introducing this film when it debuts in September.
Yep. Yeah. At the Westdale Theater, right?
That's right.
What is it? The 16th? Is it the 16th? Yeah. 16th at the Westdale. Yeah, so I'm going to introduce Marco rather than introduce the film, and and you know, because it's Marco's deal, so it's pretty cool. This is his first foray into, you know, proper documentary making, and you know, it's a great story to do that with, and then he will probably move on and do other great documentaries, because it's pretty cool seeing all the, you know, all the nice professional editing and stuff that makes, you know, these Contrarians episodes a cut above what pretty much everybody else is doing. So
yeah, it does look great. I assume you've seen the final film.
No, I haven't yet.
Ooh.
No, I haven't.
Interesting.
Yet. Yeah. Well, I just watched the trailer again today, so it was pretty cool. He packs a lot into the trailer even. So
we've been playing clips tonight, and one of my favorite clips that we played was regarding the band's image, and you used a phrase that I love called you said it looked like an explosion in the costume factory.
Right. yeah
And I just love that. I'm just curious, Marco says that you are basically kind of responsible for him getting the show on the road with this documentary, and how proud are you of your role in this film?
I didn't know I had that role, really. You know, I mean, I guess the cool thing is, I think more so the role is that Marco and Nick and these guys had access to all this equipment, and they wanted to put it to good use and whatnot. So I don't know if I had much. I mean, maybe you know, the reviewer, whatever, that was out, because nobody's written on a lot of these bands, right? I mean, in those books I did, I try to put in everything kind of thing. But it's cool that it's one of these nice with a great album cover too, like that really cool rarity looking album cover, and it became a big collectible for that reason, right? So yeah, there it is. Yeah, I've got my CD of it here.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna have to hunt for one of these
with a third logo design on it.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, that's really what this thing sounds like too. It sounds like, you know, an indie, complicated Maiden progressive band with a good singer and a busy drummer, possibly, you know, too busy all over the place with some of the songs. Like, you know, they definitely could have used some editing or more so probably like just a really good studio session to settle them down or whatever, and that thing would have been even more of a masterpiece. But I mean, it really does have a lot of great ideas and interesting melodies. It always reminded me a little bit of the legend of that first Warlord EP, the whole Deliver Us EP. It sounds a little bit like that kind of band. So, you know, they're in that weird space of being, you know, early in on, you know, early in on 90s power metal by being in the 80s, but being right there along with the likes of your Dios and your Queensryches and your Warlords and Fate's Warning and all that. But as Marco, I'm sure, has explained, I don't know how long you guys have been talking so far, but how long have you guys been on?
Not long, just since 7.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, it's, as Marco, I'm sure, has explained, you know, this is a band caught between, you know, big movements in the industry and not knowing what to do with it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess towards the end there, they were moving to, for lack of a better phrase, moving towards a hair metal sound. And I'm kind of curious how you feel that would have worked out if they had come through with an album with that image that they had, the Costume Factory image.
Well, I mean, they were in early, unlike most, they would have been in early on hair metal, unlike most Canadian bands. I mean, we had the likes of, it's funny, we had two really high quality, super early bands in, and that would have been Santers and Coney Hatch. But really, the other true hair metal bands were all in kind of late. Your Slick Toxics and your Svengalis and who else would have been in there? I mean, if you want to go light, you've got your Harem Scarums and Brighton Rocks and all that. I mean, Lee Aaron's there the whole time, I suppose. But, possibly, if these guys would have got in and made some contacts and got a good producer and got in with a good studio and wrote a bunch of great songs, maybe use some outside songwriters as well. Had they got in there with a good solid album in like 1987, 88, right? When they were doing this stuff, it still would have been prime time for them.
We have a comment from England. He loves your book, Black Sabbath in the 70s Sabotage.
Cool. Nice. Thanks very much. Yeah.
Interesting story is I might have mentioned this to Martin previously, but back when I discovered that Martin had put Mystique in his record collecting guide book, and I wasn't even aware of the second book until much later, which was the heavy metal Collector's Guide Reviews book. Back in like 2000, 2001, maybe 2002-ish, when I found out that they were in the first record collecting book, I actually sent an email to Martin Popoff when I was like a kid. And he actually very graciously responded and like answered my questions, because I was asking him about Mystique, like, how did you know about this band Mystique and blah, blah, blah. And we had a little bit of an email communication back then. And I think I told him that much later when we did the Mystique interview, but it's just interesting how things kind of come around again. Like, you probably would have never remembered that email conversation years later. Now all of a sudden we're working together. So it's just an interesting thing for sure.
What year was that?
That was like 2000, somewhere between 2001, 2003, somewhere in there, wow. 2002. Yeah. Because back then when you Googled Mystique, now you Google Mystique and you'll find images, and Encyclopedia Metallum has all their albums listed and all that information and stuff like that. In 2001, 2002, you would have to scour the search engines and you might find somebody's vinyl want list that had 100 albums on it. And right in the middle where the M's are, you'd see Mystique, Black Rider, 1985, something like that. So when I found
Discogs as well, Discogs has the EP, the cassette, the single.
For sure. So when I found out, and I would email these people who had the Mystique EP in their vinyl want list, and I'd ask them, like, where did you hear about this band? And they'd say, oh, I've heard about it here or there, and somebody told me I heard about it in this great record collecting book. And then I looked up the book, and then I got the book, and I just contacted Martin, sent him an email, and he responded. So that was really cool.
I'm kind of curious, Martin, if you owned Mystique physically back then, or if it's something you kind of heard on tapes.
Yeah, I think I owned a copy physically at one point, but I mean, so many records have come through my hands, come and gone. I was an early guy in on gem.com when there was that big marketplace of music there, and I sold so much stuff for so cheap, back then. You kind of kick yourself, right? And then I'd have buddies come by my office constantly, and even guys with record stores. There you go, yeah, and buying up stuff from me. So, my vinyl collection has gone from 11,000 down to 5,000 at this point. So yeah, lots of stuff I kind of regret losing, and that would be one of them.
Ah, damn. You mentioned earlier, we hope that Marco does continue on this road of documenting bands and filmmaking and whatnot. If you had to advise Marco on what to do next, do you have any advice for that?
Man, I don't know. It's a good idea to just keep when an idea pops in your head, I should just messenger you over and just say, look, here's a great idea. But all of these, for example, Contrarians episodes we do, or my History in 5 Songs episodes that we do, right? There's neat, interesting themes in all that stuff. Always, I suppose, the hurdle is getting music licensed properly. So you either have things where you make up your own music and it sounds kind of cheesy because you did that, or you have no music at all. But none of us are going to be wanting to hunt down how to even pay for music licensing, let alone pay for it, right? So it's kind of an interesting thing that way. But he's doing it now. He's doing it over and over and over again every Contrarians episode.
True.
Short things. But yeah, it'd be cool to come up with some idea, some theme, and do a long form do a long form properly, put together thing.
And here's my pitch, and feel free to shoot it down. But The Contrarians, the movie.
Yeah. It'd be like a road trip movie, maybe.
It'd be like a road trip movie, maybe. There you go. Yeah. And we have Eric here. He's complimenting you guys on your Kiss Alive 3 What If episode. That was a very special one indeed, because I remember in the 80s having those conversations with friends. How come Kiss haven't put out a Live 3 yet, and what's going to be on it? So that's a lot. I guess you guys have had a great response to that Kiss episode, eh?
Pretty good. Yeah. Anything Kiss, like Marco says, anything Kiss wise does well. And, Marco is an expert, and he gets Brett going, and the two of them together are a great team, and they do some good Kiss stuff too. So.
Yeah. And Joe, we have some good guys on our team.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I was mentioning a little bit earlier about when we had filmed your interview and stuff like this. And I had mentioned, to the guys how Mystique was certainly an influence on me and things like this. And when I had done the interview with you, I remember walking out feeling like I had this like education that I didn't have beforehand, thinking that I was this Mystique expert. But what was interesting about the interview was you were my first interview, which was that in itself was exciting. I don't know if you knew that at the time. But what also was interesting was I remember beforehand we had an email conversation where you had said you have to be very specific with your questions. Like I know of this band, but I don't know how long I can talk about them and this and that. And I remember thinking okay, and I had everything planned out anyways already. And I showed up and we ended up filming for like an hour and 40 minutes. And it was just, and I'd love to release the full interview just raw, because it was incredible. Because a lot of it was, like I had mentioned earlier before you jumped on, you might've heard this part, was specific to Mystique, but also just scenarios. Might have been fun for you. I'd like to ask you how you felt about the interview. Was it fun for you with these kind of like the Kiss Alive, what if scenario, maybe having fun with the scenarios of what a band like Mystique in this type of what would happen if, or what could they have done, or this and that. What did you feel about the
that is really interesting. And that's because Mystique is more like a representation of something, right? Like the small band doing this cool type of music, and then things change, and then you're pressured to change, and then you don't know what to do. So yeah, that is actually really cool about it. And that sort of stuff is something if and when you make a DVD of the movie, that's extras, or you put it out after or whatever, but you certainly don't do it now, right? You do it much later, or after the fact, after the movie, right?
Yeah, it seemed like it was a great exercise even for you. The questions I asked you and the way I asked them.
Yeah.
And that's how the Contrarians came about. That's where, after that, we got together and came up with the idea.
True,
So.
Wow, so this is the origin story.
Yeah.
You definitely have to do the Contrarians movie as the sequel then, Marco. I'm sorry. You've written yourself into a corner now.
I've thought about pursuing further documentaries about, maybe in a general way, the history of Hamilton music or something like that. I've thought about that. I've thought about maybe if other bands see the documentary and maybe they're interested in having their story told and they reach out to me. I've thought about that. It is a lot of work though. And it would be hard for me to do it on a band I wasn't as passionate about, for sure. But I probably won't stop. I'm trying to get this thing going first. And I've had other ideas, but I try to push the other ideas away because I need to focus on, I think like the Contrarians already, and I can't think of too much right now, but I probably will continue it in some form, and it'll probably be music related, I would assume.
Well, if it is music related, a good word of advice is, say, if you did do it on another band, you just got to have that conversation with them immediately and say, how do we get your music licensed for free? Can we do that? Can you make sure, because there's the band and then there's all the record companies that they might have been associated with, and they can't really speak for those record companies, right? So, get that cleared away, and then start, do you got some good musician friends who could actually make good music for you themselves, right? Because you do hear, the cheesy version of this kind of what Kiss music sounds like, and you stick it in a Kiss doc, right? And it, it sounds vaguely like Kiss or whatever, and that's allowed, right? So yeah, there's I guess you got to kind of learn the steps of going out and seeing what it takes to ever license music if you're gonna do that,
for sure.
Right?
In this case, it was not difficult because John and Ray own all the Mystique music, so it was easy to get them to sign off on it.
Yep.
Actually, Marco, that's a great idea right there. I know
Iron
you're a
Mike
wrestling
Shark
fan.
Button,
But let's just bring the focus right back to your current project where it should be for a moment. Obviously, we just want to reiterate the debut is September 16th at the what theater?
The Westdale Theater in Hamilton, September 16. Go to the Facebook page, the Mystique Film Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. It's not very difficult to find the link. It's showing up on your banner here at the bottom.
That's easy to type.
Yeah, so if you are a fan of Hamilton history, there's a lot of that in here. Of course, it focuses on the band Mystique. But if this film is successful, hopefully you'll see other projects like this emerge. So if you are a fan of Hamilton history, you are a fan of bands like Mystique, you'll probably find something interesting there. The band members will be there. There's going to be like merchandise. There's going to be T-shirts, buttons, and stuff like this. I have an original Mystique button here.
Wow.
We're having new ones done and new T-shirts. I can show you just for fun because I have a handful of actually original Mystique T-shirts. This was one that they had put out and actually sold at shows. So this is a silhouette of the band on the front with the logo that you saw on the button there. And on the back, it has the Eiffel Tower and the CN Tower. It says 287. That's where they recorded the I Am the King cassette. And there will be T-shirts there. I plan on having a display booth so you can see old merchandise, recordings, lyric sheets and stuff. So it's a little bit of a museum kind of thing going on there as well. The band's going to be there. So you'll see them come up afterwards and take a bow. And it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really interesting. It's our premiere film bash. I don't know if we'll do it again, but hopefully maybe if there's enough demand, we'll maybe run it in other theaters as well and enter it into film festivals and stuff like this. So, but definitely this is an interesting opportunity for bands of a similar caliber, like Martin said, to Mystique, because it would be really interesting. All the metal collectors out there, I'm sure, have their own favorite metal bands in their collection. They'd love to see a documentary, a full-length documentary on this band or that band. And I just think it would be really interesting and cool for folks to discover bands and music that they weren't aware of. And that's local to their area. That's history. It's, so to me, it's really interesting. The film has already created so many opportunities. I mean, it's funny that they tried to make it, with the CD, the albums and the cassettes and the 45 and stuff. They put out all that stuff back then in an independent way, and they had success. They got money playing live and they, did things like that. But it's interesting how so many years later, because of their trying to make it back then, I had the opportunity to meet Martin, and then we got the opportunity for the Contrarians. And now the folks on our Patreon page are having their own channels. And it's like, that's all rooted in Mystique. Mystique gave us all that opportunity.
It's amazing. Like, obviously, I've noticed there's been a lot of great new Contrarian related shows coming up on YouTube. And it's like, to think that it all originated with that connection with Mystique. That's really fantastic. So what you've built here.
We all have something to be thankful to Mystique for.
That's really cool. Nice. Well, I know Harrison and I, we have one like kind of final question, which Martin alluded to. A DVD release. How are we going to be able to see it? He's in Australia.
Yeah, make sure you film some of the premiere too for a bonus features. That would be cool to see.
Yeah, but like, what plans do you have for distribution for guys like Harrison or even myself who hates driving to see it?
Yeah, well, I've definitely thought about releasing it on DVD before I even had a film. So I know that DVD and physical media is passé per se. But I do know that metal collectors like physical things. And I think that if we were to connect with a label like Neat Metal Records that put out the CD, they might be interested in releasing something like this on DVD. I mean, they worked with Mystique previously. They might distribute it. They might, but that's something right now I'm really focusing on the premiere, making sure that's a success. But I would imagine that there's going to be a physical release. I know lots of people from all over the world on our social media pages have reached out to me and said, like, obviously I can't come to Hamilton because I'm from Sweden or I'm from Norway, I'm from whatever, the States even, but I'd love to see it. So I can't wait to see it when it comes out wherever. Streaming might be an option. I'd like to put it on DVD because I'd like to put it on my shelf and start my own shelf. Like Martin's got there, all his books on a shelf. I'd love to have something I created on the shelf that's a physical official release.
I hope it happens. I want it in my shelf.
And there's lots of bonus material. So
your Uncle Ray,
an extended cut.
Your Uncle Ray Doria, he must be very proud.
Oh, absolutely. Me and him, we get along very well. I go and see him all the time. We always talk about music. We're always watching concert stuff together. He's super excited about it, and we definitely bonded over this. And yeah, for sure, he's excited about it. And I can't wait for him to see it and have everybody appreciate him the night of. And the other band members
use that as my segue to the final giveaway, which is the signed poster, the signed Mystique poster. The trivia question is, and first comment gets it, the signed Mystique poster. The trivia question is, Marco Doria's uncle is named what? Marco Doria's uncle, the lead vocalist of Mystique, is named what? That is your question. First correct comment gets the poster. So we've already given away an 8x10. Now we have this great poster to give away. That is cool. And if my mother is still there, you can qualify as getting given to me for my birthday.
Autographed by some of the original members of the band.
That's fantastic. Okay, so that's the question. First correct answer gets it. And I don't have any further questions. I sorry, just cut you off there.
No, I was just going to say quickly, like the clips that we showed don't show all the people that were interviewed. Like it didn't, I was going to say the joke, like if you wanted to see my Uncle Ray and John, they're the two founders of Mystique. If you wanted to see them talk, you're going to have to pay to go see the film. But they're in it as well. And there's other original members of Mystique and other members that I'd cycled through as well in the film. But yeah, it's going to be exciting for sure. It's a full circle thing because they were around Hamilton 30 years ago and now they're coming back. So it's going to be really cool.
There you go.
Ray, there you go. Uncle Ray.
But because this is my mother, we're going to give it to A. Stewart. We're going to give it to A. Stewart. So Marco, I will forward you the winner's email, physical addresses, and we can get those prizes off. Thank you for participating, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. I don't have any further questions. Harrison, do you have anything you want to ask to wrap up?
Nothing really related to Mystique anymore. I got through all of mine as well. But when's the Brain Train documentary?
Well, you have to ask Marco because I don't have those kind of skills. If Marco's willing. But thank you so much, guys, for joining tonight. I truly wish you all the success, Marco. And I love what I've seen. I truly love what I've seen, and I'm very happy to have been able to bring some of this to the people tonight and the story of the origin. And Martin, I'm just absolutely blown away that you taught Marco about Mystique. Like that's the twist that I didn't expect.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I don't know. I don't know if I can take credit for that, of course, but I'm just the guy writing a review at one point. So.
Well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope to go see the film, but like I say, I hate this and I hate Hamilton. So we spent this whole movie, boosting Hamilton, and here I am just pooping all over them. But I can't wait to see what you've got in store for future distribution, and I definitely want to see the full 140-minute Martin interview. I can't wait to see what you've got.
That would be cool.
I wish you all the best, and so we'll say one more time: September 16th. You can get your tickets right down there. It's easy to type.
Eventbrite. Even just search the band in Eventbrite, it'll pop up.
There you go.
Yeah. It's $10 tickets. I think there's fees, so it's like $11. $11 Canadian to go support a local band and a local film.
That's nothing. It's nothing. You'll spend more on parking, so take the bus.
And it's more, like I said, it's more than just a film. There's other stuff going on that night.
Yeah, it's like Mystique Museum, you could basically call it.
Yeah.
Get your stuff autographed. Band will be there. That's amazing. Well, once again, thank you, gentlemen. I think that's that for the Mystique show. You guys don't have to hang around for this, but I do have an announcement to make, which is, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually the final LeBrain Train show. I have decided to put it on ice. It has been 2.5 years of doing this on Friday nights. And if this summer has taught me anything, it's that I've missed a lot of sunsets. And 2.5 years of them. So I just want to say thank you guys for being my final guests. I have had an absolute blast doing this for the last 2.5 years. Martin, I've had you on twice. Marco, I don't remember how many times I've had you on. But I need a break. I've missed out on some summer, and I'm sorry to disappoint anybody who was hoping to see more, but I'm burned out. I'm burned out. But the Contrarians have plenty of great stuff to watch. There's so many great channels coming. There's Grant's Rock Warehouse. There's other ones. Great stuff to watch. In fact, Grant's Rock Warehouse is on right now. So
what are we doing here then?
What are you doing watching me? Go watch Grant. So yeah, that's all I had to say. I have a special music video that I'm going to play, and that's all she wrote. Whether I come back at any point in the future, I don't know. I think I'm done. I think I'm done, but you never know what the winter will bring. So that's my announcement.
Hey.
Sorry to bring the party to a crash at the end there, but again, Mystique, check it out, September 16th, Hamilton, Ontario. Get your tickets. We're going to figure out a way to get this movie in your eyes and in your ears somehow, with it, whether it's a DVD or streaming. We're going to get it in your ears. So anyway, this is, like I said, this is the last song on the last show, and this is appropriately a song called The Last Train. This is a song by T-Bone Erickson, who does all of our music here. And it's actually, for the very first time, a collaboration with my sister, Dr. Catherine Ladano, on bass clarinet. So very special song, very special video. This is The Last Train by T-Bone Erickson and Dr. Catherine Ladano. Thank you so much for joining. I thank you for the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
All right. See you later.
See you guys.
Hey, bye.
Ciao. Man, that's bittersweet. Thanks, Marco. I hope I didn't bring you down at the end there, but
no, you have a lot to be proud of.
Thanks, man.
Everything that you've done also, continues to help the music history of the world and all the writings that you do and reviews and the videos that you've done. Like you have your own place in music history, So
thanks, man.
I'm glad
you're in the liner notes to a Def Leppard box set.
True, I am.
Sorry to interrupt, Mark.
I don't want to, say I'm coming back or anything like that, but I need a break, and in the winter I get a little bored, so I'm not saying I'll never live stream again, but I think the LeBrain Train as a show is done. There is a lot of stuff out there, and a lot of stuff that I've already covered and other people are covering before I get to it. And it just feels like I've had a good time, and it's time to try something new. Maybe I'm not going to make a film like Marco, but I'll do something. I don't know what, but it won't be until the winter. And
we've got our little creative writing exercise.
Yeah,
already.
We're doing our fiction stories, our adventures of T-Bone and stuff like that. But I think that's what can I say? I'm tired. I'm tired. This has been a lot of Fridays, man. How many? 114, I think. This is the 114th episode. So that's 114 Fridays that I've been very busy. And, I need to live. I have a life too. Believe it or not. But I appreciate that people have been brought together, And Marco, I appreciate that now I'm a part of this greater community that the Contrarians have created as well.
Yeah, and let's
have
so many
cool people.
Yeah, let's get you on the Contrarians. We'll see you on an episode.
Well, now I got more free time. Guaranteed, man. Anytime you got something Kiss cooking, I'm definitely down. And once again, we'll plug that Kiss episode. The What If Kiss put out an Alive 3 in the 80s.
The funnest part about that was
Blaze Bailey historical retrospective.
The funnest thing is the thumbnail of the What If thing was a fake album cover that I got to create for Kiss Alive, a fake Kiss Alive 3 if it came out in 1982 or whatever, and that was kind of fun to do.
You do a lot of graphic work now, I guess.
Of the graphic, me and Nick do the graphics on the Contrarians, but the What If show and the fake record labels and stuff, I created that, and that's fun to do.
That's cool. All right, guys, thanks for being on the last show. We should go out on a special song besides obviously The Last Train, but we should do a classic, I think. We already played ODP at the beginning of the show. Community. Let's play Community. Let's do it. So we're taking off for the night. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll get those prizes in the mail to Frank and Aaron. And thanks for watching for these last 2.5 years. Thank you, Marco, for all your support. And this is really my favorite song that we've ever played, Community by T-Bone Erickson and the entire community. So we'll see you when we see you, but we won't be seeing you for a while. Take care, everybody.
Right.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Thanks, Harris.
Southern Ontario, we planted a seed, had a yearning need we couldn't get from the stereo. Started out as two and it slowly grew into a passionate fraternity. No matter where I roam, it's always home from here to eternity. It's where we'll find
desde Cuba a la comunidad de Aaron.
Welcome, Nighthawks. We've been expecting you. The hour's late, but the party is just getting started. I'm Alistair Kovacs, your host for a sophisticated little soiree with jazz, stimulating conversation, beautiful ladies, more jazz. Look, it's Charlie, sincerely one of the best white non-union jazz pianists in the entire city, top 5. Charlie, play some of those notes you know I like.